The hiss of escaping cryogenic gases filled the chamber as Jack Morrison's pod slowly opened. His eyes flickered beneath frosted eyelashes, consciousness returning like a reluctant tide. The emergency lights cast an eerie red glow across the frost-covered walls of the facility, and somewhere in the darkness, a mechanical voice spoke with failing clarity. Life support systems. Critical. Backup power, 17%. Current date, April 15, 2487. Jack's military training kicked in before his memories fully returned. He forced his trembling legs to move, catching himself on the edge of the pod as 3 centuries of dormancy protested against sudden movement. The date echoed in his mind, 2487, 300 years after he'd entered the pod. Identity confirmed. Commander Jack Morrison, Phoenix Protocol Test Subject 7. The facility's aging computer system announced, its voice wavering between octaves as ancient processors struggle to function. Warning. Primary systems failure imminent. Status report. Jack managed to croak, his throat raw and dry. He stumbled toward a supply cabinet, muscle memory guiding him despite the disorientation. Facility status. Critical. All other Phoenix Protocol subjects. Deceased. External communications. Offline. Sol system status. Under collective control. Human population. Reduced to less than 300 million Earth-wide. Each word hit like a physical blow. Jack's hands froze in the middle of opening a hydration pack. The collective. They had been nothing but distant signals when he'd entered cryosleep, mysterious transmissions from the outer solar system that had made Earth's governments nervous enough to initiate the Phoenix Protocol. "Show me," he commanded, forcing himself to drink the stale water as he made his way to the facility's main console. The screen flickered to life, displaying a series of images that made his blood run cold. Earth, once blue and vibrant, now bore massive industrial scars visible from orbit. The moon had been transformed into a processing facility, its surface covered in geometric patterns of alien architecture. Mars, where he now stood, was dotted with mining operations and processing centers, all bearing the distinctive hexagonal patterns of collective construction. Timeline of events, Jack requested, his voice stronger now as the cryo fog cleared from his mind. The screen filled with data, and his enhanced vision, courtesy of the Phoenix Protocol's nanotechnology, allowed him to process it rapidly. The collective had arrived in force in 2190, just 3 years after he'd entered cryosleep. Earth's governments had fallen within months, their weapons useless against an enemy that could turn their own technology against them. The hive-mind alien species had deemed humanity too dangerous to be allowed full autonomy, but too useful to exterminate completely. "Access Phoenix Protocol records," Jack ordered, fighting to maintain his composure as he read about humanity's fall. Warning. Experimental nanotechnology has undergone significant evolution during cryo period. The computer responded. Current synthesis indicates integration far beyond original parameters. Jack looked down at his hands, noticing for the first time the faint silver tracery beneath his skin, patterns that shifted and moved like liquid mercury. He focused, and the patterns responded, extending across his arm in geometric designs that mimicked collective technology. A distant explosion rocked the facility, sending cascades of dust from the ceiling. The computer's voice became more distorted. Warning. Collective patrol detected. Facility location compromised. Recommend immediate evacuation. Jack's mind raced. He wasn't ready for a confrontation, but his body told him otherwise. The nanotech in his system had evolved far beyond its original design, and he could feel it responding to his situation, enhancing his strength, sharpening his senses, interfacing with the facility's systems in ways that shouldn't have been possible. "Upload all relevant data to my neural interface," he commanded, surprised at how naturally the words came to him. The facility's dying computer complied, and Jack felt the information flow directly into his consciousness. Facility layouts, collective patrol patterns, surface conditions. As another explosion shook the building, Jack Morrison, the last survivor of the Phoenix Protocol, grabbed a nearby weapon and checked its charge. 300 years had passed, but his purpose remained the same: protect humanity. And now, with his evolved capabilities, he might be the only one who could. The game of cat and mouse was about to begin, but the collective was about to learn a harsh lesson. They weren't the hunters in this scenario. They were the prey. Jack moved through the Martian dust storm like a ghost, his enhanced vision cutting through the haze of red particles. The nanotech beneath his skin had adapted to the harsh environment, creating a microscopic barrier that protected him from the worst of the planet's hostile atmosphere. Ahead loomed his target, Processing Center 23, a massive hexagonal structure that pulsed with sickly green light. 3 collective sentries patrolled the perimeter, their crystalline bodies reflecting the facility's glow. Jack's newly evolved abilities revealed their communications as patterns of light dancing through their transparent forms. He focused, and suddenly their transmissions became clear in his mind. Alien thoughts translated into understandable data. Efficiency down 2.3% in Sector 7, one transmitted. Human workers showing signs of fatigue. Recommend increased nutrient supplementation rather than replacement. Training new units decreases efficiency by 12.8%. The casual discussion of human lives as mere resources made Jack's jaw clench. He waited for the patrol to pass, then made his move. The nanotech in his system interfaced with the facility's outer sensors, creating a blind spot just long enough for him to slip inside through a maintenance hatch. The interior was worse than he'd imagined. Through reinforced windows, he saw massive chambers filled with hundreds of humans working in assembly lines. They moved with mechanical precision, their faces empty, each wearing neural dampeners that glowed with the same sickly green as the facility's lights. A child, no more than 12, stumbled in line. Before she could fall, an older woman caught her, quickly helping her regain position before the overseer noticed. Jack's enhanced hearing picked up their whispered exchange. "Stay strong, Sarah," the woman murmured. "The ghost resistance will come for us," they promised. Ghost resistance, Jack whispered to himself, storing that information away. He wasn't alone in this fight. Moving deeper into the facility, he found a data access point. His nanotech interfaced with it instantly, and information flooded his consciousness. Earth's population centers had been transformed into massive mining and manufacturing operations. The collective needed human workers because something in human neural patterns made them more efficient at certain tasks than artificial labor. A cruel irony of efficiency. A sudden commotion drew his attention. In a nearby chamber, a man had broken formation, tearing off his neural dampener. "We are not your machines," he shouted, inspiring others to follow suit. "We are human beings." The response was immediate and brutal. Collective overseers moved to contain the situation, their crystalline forms shifting into combat configuration. Jack's body tensed, ready to intervene, but years of military training held him back. He couldn't save them. Not yet. Not alone. But he recorded everything, his nanotech preserving every detail of the collective's cruelty. That's when he saw it. In the chaos of the revolt, some workers were passing small objects between them, using the disturbance as cover. Their movements were too coordinated for random chance. The ghost resistance wasn't just a rumor, it was operating right under the collective's nose. Jack accessed deeper layers of facility data, searching for transport records. If he could track where these workers were taken after their shifts, he might find his way to the resistance. His nanotech sifted through the data streams at incredible speed, but something else caught his attention. A classified file about Project Eclipse. The file opened, revealing the true horror of humanity's situation. The collective wasn't just using humans for labor. They were studying them, searching for something in human neural patterns that they both feared and desired. And the closer they got to understanding it, the sooner humanity would outlive its usefulness. Time was running out. Jack downloaded everything he could about Project Eclipse and worker transport routes. As he prepared to exit the facility, he left something behind. A small subroutine buried in the facility systems, coded to gather intel and create blind spots in security. The collective thought they had created a perfect system of control, but they had never faced anything like him. In the distance, sirens began to wail as the revolt was finally contained. Jack slipped out into the Martian night, his mind racing with plans. He had found what he needed, a way to contact the resistance. But more importantly, he had found something else. Proof that humanity hadn't lost its will to fight. 3 days of tracking worker transport signatures led Jack to the Valles Marineris, Mars' Grand Canyon. The massive geological scar provided perfect cover for the resistance, its labyrinthine network of caves, scrambling collective sensors. He'd followed the patterns, brief power fluctuations, unexplained equipment malfunctions, and workers who disappeared during shifts only to reappear hours later with no explanation. The attack came without warning. One moment he was alone, the next surrounded by figures in salvaged collective armor, their weapons trained on his position. They moved like professionals, maintaining perfect fields of fire. "That's far enough, stranger," a voice called out. A woman stepped forward, her armor distinguished by red striping on the shoulder plates. "Hands where we can see them, and don't bother trying to interface with our tech. It's all isolated systems." Jack raised his hand slowly. "Commander Jack Morrison, Phoenix Protocol. I'm looking for the Ghost Resistance." Phoenix Protocol was decommissioned 3 centuries ago, the woman replied, her weapon unwavering. "Try again." Before Jack could respond, proximity alarms shrieked to life. A collective patrol had breached the canyon's outer perimeter, their crystalline forms glowing in the darkness. The resistance fighters shifted, preparing for combat, but they were outnumbered 3-1. "We can discuss my identity later," Jack said, letting the nanotech surge through his system. Silver patterns rippled across his skin. "Right now, you need my help." The patrol's first volley of energy weapons lit up the canyon. The resistance fighters dove for cover, returning fire with salvaged collective weapons. But their shots passed harmlessly through the crystalline forms. The collective had already adapted to their weapons' frequency. Jack closed his eyes, extending his consciousness into the electromagnetic spectrum that the collective used for communication. Their thoughts were alien, but their combat protocols were clear as day. He found the frequency they were using to maintain their crystalline structure and inverted it. The effect was immediate. The collective units shattered like glass, their forms collapsing into piles of inert crystal. The remaining patrols pulled back, their tactical network thrown into chaos by the unexpected loss. The woman in red-striped armor stared at the crystalline remains, then at Jack. "Inside," she ordered. "Now." The resistance base was a marvel of human ingenuity. They'd converted ancient lava tubes into living quarters, using salvaged collective tech to create a self-sustaining environment. As they walked, Jack noticed the mix of military precision and civilian life. Children playing in hydroponics gardens, engineers maintaining equipment, fighters running combat drills. Commander Amanda Hayes, the woman, finally introduced herself, removing her helmet to reveal sharp features and calculating eyes. "Former Mars Colonial Defense, and you're either the best collective infiltrator I've ever seen, or you're telling the truth about the Phoenix Protocol. Test me however you want," Jack offered. "But first, you need to know about Project Eclipse. The collective isn't just enslaving humanity. They're studying us, looking for something in our neural patterns." Amanda's expression darkened. "Follow me." She led him to a sealed chamber deep within the base. Inside, holographic displays showed familiar patterns, the same neural studies he discovered in the processing center. A team of scientists worked at various stations, led by a man with graying hair and intense focus. "Dr. Thomas Reynolds," Amanda introduced. "He's been tracking collective research patterns for years. Tell him what you found." Jack interfaced with the chamber systems, projecting the data he'd stolen. Dr. Reynolds' eyes widened as he studied the information. This confirms our worst fears, he said. The collective isn't just afraid of human potential. They're trying to replicate it. They've discovered something in our neural architecture that allows for truly random creative thought, something they can't reproduce in their hive mind. And once they crack the code, Jack asked, already knowing the answer, they won't need us anymore. Amanda finished. We'll have outlived our usefulness. That's why we've been hitting their processing centers, trying to slow their research. But with your abilities, she studied him thoughtfully. You could change everything. Not alone, Jack said, watching the base's activities through the chamber windows. But together, we might have a chance to do more than just survive. We might be able to take back our world. Amanda's smile was fierce. Welcome to the Ghost Resistance, Commander Morrison. Let's show the collective why they were right to fear human potential. Again, Jack commanded, watching as 20 resistance fighters moved through the combat simulation. The transformed cargo bay hummed with energy as holographic collective units materialized around them. His nanotech interface had helped them repurpose salvaged collective training systems, creating realistic combat scenarios. Sarah Chen, the young girl he'd seen at the processing center, now sat beside him in the control room. She'd escaped during a resistance raid and showed an unprecedented ability to sense collective communication patterns. Their formation is too rigid, she observed. The collective adapts to patterns. Exactly. Jack keyed the comm. Amanda, your team's thinking like human soldiers. Think chaos. Think unpredictable. Below, Amanda's squad scattered, breaking every conventional tactical pattern. They moved like water, flowing around the holographic enemies, striking from impossible angles. The simulation's difficulty increased, trying to adapt to their randomized movements, but the more it adjusted, the more erratic the squad became. Dr. Reynolds monitored neural patterns from his station. Fascinating. The more they embrace unpredictability, the harder it becomes for the collective systems to track them. It's like trying to predict where a leaf will fall in a hurricane. The simulation ended with a record score. Amanda's team gathered around Jack as he descended to the training floor. Their eyes shone with a fire that had been missing when he first arrived 2 weeks ago. The collective relies on prediction algorithms, Jack explained, letting his nanotech project a tactical display. They're powerful, but limited. They can't process true randomness. That's why they fear human consciousness. We can make choices that defy logical prediction. Like this? A young fighter named Marcus stepped forward, tossing his weapon to his opposite hand mid-roll and taking out 3 targets with an impossible backwards shot. The others laughed, but Jack nodded approvingly. Exactly like that. The collective expects humans to take the most efficient action. When we don't, it creates microsecond delays in their response time. In those delays, we strike. Dr. Reynolds called Jack to his station, excitement evident in his voice. Commander, look at these neural patterns. Every time our fighters embrace their unpredictability, their brains light up in ways the collective can't replicate. It's not just about random actions. It's about creative improvisation. Amanda joined them, studying the data. That's why they need human workers for certain tasks. Their hive mind can't handle creative problem-solving. Jack's nanotech suddenly flared, silver patterns racing across his skin. The base's security systems were detecting something. He connected to the network, his consciousness expanding through the sensor grid. Collective patrol, but something's different. Their formation is unusual. The tactical display showed a squadron of crystalline units moving toward their location, but their pattern was unlike anything in their database. They're learning, Jack realized, adapting their own tactics to be less predictable. Sound the alarm, Amanda asked, hand on her weapon. No, Jack decided. This is a perfect training opportunity. Sarah, can you sense their communication patterns? The girl closed her eyes, concentrating. They're scattered, like they're trying to copy our chaos. But it's still programmed chaos. Jack smiled. They can imitate unpredictability, but they can't truly create it. Amanda, get your team ready. We're going to show them the difference between following random patterns and truly embracing chaos. As the resistance fighters moved into position, Jack felt his nanotech evolving again. Each engagement with the collective pushed his abilities further, creating new adaptations. Dr. Reynolds had theorized that the Phoenix Protocol's greatest achievement wasn't the nanotech itself, but its ability to learn and grow with its host. Remember, Jack addressed the team. Don't think about what you should do. Don't think about what makes sense. Feel what feels impossible, then do that. The collective is trying to understand human unpredictability by copying it. Let's show them why that will never work. Amanda gave the order, and the resistance fighters moved out. As they disappeared into their positions, Jack knew they were about to write another chapter in their growing legend. The collective thought they could understand humanity by studying it. They were about to learn that some things had to be experienced to be understood. And some things, like the chaos of human spirit, could never be replicated. The Martian sandstorm provided perfect cover for the assault on Processing Center 23. Jack stood at the command post with Amanda and Dr. Reynolds, watching red lightning crack across the sky. His nanotech interfaced with the facility's outer sensors, feeding false data to mask their approach. Strike teams in position, Amanda reported, her armor gleaming with modifications based on Jack's enhanced understanding of collective technology. Sarah's confirming minimal civilian presence in the target zones. Through the neural network, Jack sensed Sarah's consciousness reaching out from her protected position in their mobile command center. The girl's gift for reading collective communications had grown stronger with training. Main production floor is almost empty, she reported. They're running a maintenance cycle. It's now or never. Jack closed his eyes, extending his awareness through the facility's systems. Silver patterns danced beneath his skin as he connected with every security camera, every sensor, every automated defense. Beginning system override. Remember, we're not just here to destroy. We're here to send a message. The first phase began silently. Throughout the facility, security systems turned on their collective masters. Doors sealed, trapping crystalline overseers in isolated sections. Defense turrets rotated, targeting their own commanders. By the time the first alarm sounded, chaos was already spreading. Ghost Team, you have your opening, Amanda commanded. Show them what humanity can do. The resistance fighters moved like shadows through the facility's blind spots, their movements completely random yet perfectly coordinated. Each soldier had embraced their own style of controlled chaos, making their actions impossible for the collective to predict or counter. Marcus led the first strike team, sliding under automated cargo platforms and emerging in impossible positions. His squad targeted the neural dampener control center, destroying the systems that kept human workers compliant. Throughout the facility, workers began awakening from their forced servitude. Collective reinforcements incoming, Sarah warned. Their patterns, they're different, evolved. Jack sensed it too. The approaching collective units moved with new fluidity, their formations incorporating elements of unpredictability. They're adapting faster than expected, he told Dr. Reynolds, learning from each encounter. But they're still bound by their programming, Dr. Reynolds replied, studying the tactical displays. They can simulate chaos, but they can't truly create it. A massive explosion rocked the facility's eastern section as Amanda's team detonated their charges, destroying the main production lines. Through the security feeds, Jack watched resistance fighters leading dazed workers to safety, each squad moving according to their own chaotic yet effective patterns. Then something unexpected happened. As Jack touched the facility's deeper systems, he felt something touch back. The collective hive mind had anticipated his digital infiltration, setting a trap. Their alien consciousness surged through the connection, attempting to overwhelm his mind. But they had made a crucial mistake. The nanotech in Jack's system wasn't just technology anymore. It had evolved into something that bridged the gap between human consciousness and machine efficiency. As the hive mind tried to corrupt his systems, he let them in just enough to give them a taste of true human chaos. The effect was devastating. The ordered patterns of the collective consciousness shattered against the pure randomness of human creative thought. Their connected systems reeled, experiencing true unpredictability for the first time. Now, Jack commanded through gritted teeth, maintaining the connection. Hit them while they're blind. The resistance fighters struck with everything they had. Collective units fell into confusion as their tactical networks dissolved into chaos. Amanda led the final push, her squad taking down crystalline commanders with precision strikes to their newly revealed weak points. In the command center, Dr. Reynolds watched in amazement as Jack's neural patterns displayed on his monitors. The nanotech. It's not just adapting anymore. It's evolving into something entirely new. A perfect synthesis of human chaos and machine efficiency. Jack opened his eyes as the last collective units fell or retreated. The facility was theirs, but he knew this victory was just the beginning. In the midst of the battle, he had glimpsed something in the hive mind's consciousness. Fear, not just of humanity's potential for chaos, but of what they were becoming. As freed workers embraced their rescuers and resistance fighters secured their prize, Jack shared a knowing look with Amanda. The collective had built their empire on the assumption that they could predict and control everything. Today, they had learned that some things, like the human spirit, would always defy their predictions. Deep within the captured processing center, Jack stood before a crystalline data core that pulsed with alien light. Dr. Reynolds worked frantically at a modified interface terminal, while Amanda kept watch, her squad securing the perimeter. The victory had cost them 3 good fighters, but had gained them something invaluable: direct access to the collective's central database. "These encryption patterns are unlike anything I've seen," Dr. Reynolds muttered, his fingers flying across the holographic controls. "It's not just data storage, it's alive, adapting to each attempt at access." Jack placed his hand on the crystal surface, letting his nanotech interface with the alien technology. "Then let's try something they won't expect." Silver patterns flowed from his fingertips, merging with the core's luminescent structures. Instead of trying to break through the encryption, he let his consciousness flow with it, riding the data streams like currents in a river. Sarah, who had insisted on joining them after the battle, suddenly gasped. "The patterns, they're singing. Like a lullaby, but wrong." Her unique sensitivity to collective communications had grown stronger with each passing day. Through the connection, Jack began to see fragments of truth. Images and data cascaded through his mind. Ancient stellar maps, genetic sequences, probability calculations spanning centuries. "This goes deeper than we imagined," he said, his voice distant. "The collective didn't just stumble upon Earth. They were searching for us." The data core pulsed brighter as Jack pushed deeper. He saw the moment the collective first detected human radio signals, saw their reaction to discovering a species capable of true randomness. Their initial fear, their desperate attempts to understand how such creatures could exist. Project Eclipse wasn't about studying us, Jack realized, the truth unfolding in his mind. It was about containing us. They found something in human neural patterns that terrified them. The potential for infinite variation, for true unpredictability. Dr. Reynolds pulled up display after display of genetic data. These are compatibility studies. They'd been analyzing human DNA, looking for. His voice trailed off as the implications became clear. "Looking for the source of our chaos," Amanda finished, moving closer to the displays. "But why? They've already conquered us." More data flowed through Jack's connection. Mathematical proofs, philosophical treatises in alien languages, prophecies encoded in light and crystal. "Because they're dying," he said softly. "The collective's perfect order, their hive-mind consciousness, it's leading them to stagnation. They need our capacity for randomness, for true creativity." Sarah touched one of the crystal facets, her face reflecting its light. They're afraid of us, but they need us. Like being afraid of fire, but freezing to death. The Phoenix Protocol, Dr. Reynolds breathed, pulling up new files. It wasn't just a military program. Look at these base genetic sequences. They're identical to the ones the collective has been studying. Someone knew they were coming. Someone was trying to prepare humanity. Jack saw it then, in the depths of the data. The true purpose of his nanotech enhancement. It wasn't meant to create a perfect soldier, but to bridge the gap between human chaos and machine order, to prove that both could coexist in one consciousness. A sudden surge of energy through the core nearly overwhelmed him. The collective had detected their intrusion, but instead of cutting the connection, they opened it wider. Jack found himself in direct contact with the hive mind itself, experiencing their collective consciousness for one brutal moment. He saw their history, a species that had achieved perfect unity, perfect order, only to find that perfection was a dead end. Evolution required chaos, required the possibility of failure. The collective had achieved immortality at the cost of their ability to truly grow, to create, to evolve. They're not just studying us, Jack said as he broke the connection, his voice shaking. They're trying to become us. And if they succeed, if they can replicate human consciousness without understanding what makes it precious, they'll have no more use for the original, Amanda concluded grimly, checking her weapon. How long do we have? Jack looked at the data streams still flowing across the displays, at the patterns of fear and desperation hidden in their perfect order. Not long enough. We need to move our timetable up. The collective isn't just planning to study humanity anymore. They're planning to replace us. The first vision hit Jack during a strategy meeting. One moment he was discussing assault plans with Amanda. The next he was seeing 1,000 possible futures branching out before him. His nanotech had evolved again, pushing beyond the boundaries of normal perception. He saw timelines where humanity triumphed, others where they fell, each one crystal clear and equally possible. Jack. Amanda's voice pulled him back to the present. He was on his knees, silver patterns swirling across his skin like liquid starlight. Dr. Reynolds rushed forward with his scanning equipment, but Jack waved him off. I'm seeing them, he said, his voice resonating with new understanding. All the possibilities, all the paths. The collective thinks they can calculate every probability, but they're seeing shadows of the truth. The real possibilities. They're infinite. Sarah, who had become his unofficial apprentice in understanding collective communications, sat cross-legged beside him. Show me, she whispered, holding out her hand. Jack hesitated, then let the silver patterns flow between them, sharing a fraction of his vision. The girl's eyes widened. It's beautiful, she breathed, like a million stories all happening at once. The nanotech isn't just adapting anymore, Dr. Reynolds said, studying his readings. It's transcending its original programming, becoming something that can bridge dimensions of probability themselves. This is what the collective has been searching for, the ability to see and understand true chaos. A sudden alert blared through the base. On the tactical displays, massive energy signatures appeared in orbit around Mars. The collective was deploying something new, massive crystalline structures that began focusing energy toward the surface. They're going to burn everything, Amanda realized, watching the readings spike. If they can't control us, they'll destroy us and start over with the genetic samples they've collected. Jack stood, letting the probability visions flow through him. No, he said firmly. That's only one possible future. I see others. He moved to the command center's main interface, letting his evolved nanotech connect with their systems. The displays came alive with new data, not just tactical information, but patterns of possibility. Here, he pointed to a particular sequence. The collective's weapons require perfect synchronization. Their crystalline networks have to maintain exact frequencies to channel that much energy. But what happens to a crystal when you introduce the right kind of chaos? Dr. Reynolds' eyes lit up with understanding. Resonance frequencies. If we could broadcast the right pattern of random vibrations, their entire network would shatter, Amanda finished. But we'd need to get close enough to transmit the signal. Their orbital defenses will be focused on their primary targets, Jack said, watching probability streams flow like rivers of light. They're logical, predictable. They'll target our military assets first, then civilian centers, then infrastructure. But there's a path they won't expect, because it defies all tactical logic. He brought up a map of the Martian surface, highlighting a particular route that wound through canyons and cave systems. We go up, straight up, through their blind spot. They'll never expect an attack from directly below their platforms, because it's suicide by every calculation they can make. Which is exactly why it will work, Sarah said softly, seeing the pattern in her own way. Because it's impossible. Amanda studied the plan, her tactical mind working through the details. We'll need every fighter we have. And even then, the odds are against us, Jack acknowledged. But that's humanity's greatest strength. We defy the odds. We make the impossible possible. The collective thinks they can understand us by studying our patterns, but they're missing the fundamental truth. Our strength isn't in our unpredictability alone. It's in our ability to believe in something beyond probability. He looked around the room at the faces of his companions. Amanda's determined gaze, Dr. Reynolds' thoughtful expression, Sarah's quiet confidence. In each of them, he saw the same fire that had driven humanity to reach for the stars in the first place. The collective wants to understand the source of our chaos, he said, silver light dancing in his eyes. Let's show them that it comes from something they can never replicate. Hope. The ability to look at impossible odds and say, we will find a way. As the orbital weapons began powering up, casting ominous light through the Martian atmosphere, the Resistance prepared for their most daring mission yet. They weren't just fighting for survival anymore. They were fighting to prove that the human spirit could never be replicated or replaced. It could only be experienced, one impossible victory at a time. The assault fleet rose through the Martian canyons like a swarm of mechanical fireflies, each ship piloted by Resistance fighters who had embraced the art of chaos. Jack led the charge in a modified interceptor, his consciousness spread across their entire network. Sarah sat beside him, her gift for reading collective patterns now working in perfect harmony with his evolved abilities. Orbital platforms powering up. Amanda reported from her command ship. Energy readings are off the charts. Whatever they're planning, it's now or never. Through his expanded awareness, Jack could see the crystalline structures above them pulsing with deadly purpose. The collective had committed their full strength to this final solution, determined to purge what they couldn't control. But in their pursuit of perfect order, they had created their own blind spot. All ships, initiate random flight patterns, he commanded. Don't think, don't plan, just fly. Let instinct guide you. The Resistance fleet broke formation, each ship following its pilot's unique interpretation of chaos. Dr. Reynolds' voice crackled over the comm from the command center below. The resonance transmitters are ready. But Jack, at that power level, the feedback could overwhelm your neural interface. The nanotech wasn't designed for this kind of strain. The nanotech wasn't designed for any of this, Jack replied, watching silver patterns flow across his skin like liquid starlight. It evolved, just like we did. Sarah, are you ready? The girl nodded, her eyes reflecting the light of approaching energy weapons. I can hear their song. They're afraid, but they're also curious. Part of them wants to understand. The first shots from the orbital platforms seared through the Martian atmosphere, but the Resistance ships danced through the barrage in patterns that defied prediction. Each near miss, each impossible escape proved what Jack had learned. True randomness couldn't be calculated or controlled. As they approached the first platform, Jack opened his consciousness fully to the collective network. Their alien thoughts rushed through him like a crystal river, but this time he didn't fight the current. Instead, he showed them something they had never truly seen before, the full depth of human consciousness. They saw children playing games with rules that changed on a whim, artists creating works that defied explanation, scientists making breakthrough discoveries through intuitive leaps. They saw humanity's greatest moments, not the victories or achievements, but the countless times people had chosen hope over logic, love over efficiency, possibility over certainty. Now, Jack commanded, activating the resonance transmitters. The resistance fleet broadcasted a symphony of chaos. Music, laughter, random thoughts, dreams, all converted into frequencies that shook the very structure of the collective's perfect crystalline network. The platforms began to vibrate, their precise formations disrupted by waves of pure human unpredictability. But instead of destroying them completely, Jack did something unexpected. Through his connection, he offered the collective a choice. "You don't have to understand us to work with us," he projected into their hive mind. "You don't have to control chaos to benefit from it. There's another way. Cooperation instead of conquest." Sarah added her consciousness to his, showing the collective how she had learned to read their patterns without losing her human creativity. Amanda's tactical brilliance flowed through the network, demonstrating how discipline could work in harmony with improvisation. The crystalline structures trembled on the edge of destruction. In that moment, Jack saw all possible futures collapse into a single point of decision. The collective could choose to continue their attempt to replicate human consciousness, destroying humanity in the process, or they could choose something unprecedented, a true partnership between order and chaos. Through the neural link, he felt their decision form. The orbital platform's weapons powered down. The crystal matrices were formed, not into weapons, but into structures of communication and cooperation. The hive mind spoke, not with thoughts of conquest, but with the first stirrings of genuine curiosity. As the resistance fleet held position among the transformed platforms, Jack looked down at the red planet below, then up at the stars above. Humanity had faced extinction and emerged stronger, not by becoming more like their enemies, but by proving the value of their differences. The Phoenix Protocol wasn't about creating super soldiers, he realized, sharing the thought with his companions. It was about proving that evolution isn't just about survival. It's about growth, about becoming something greater than the sum of our parts. Sarah smiled, pointing to where the crystalline structures now pulsed with new patterns of light. "They're learning to dance," she said. "Not perfectly, not predictably, but in their own way. And we're learning to listen," Amanda added, her tactical display showing collective ships standing down across the solar system. Maybe that's the real victory. As the sun rose over Mars, casting light across a changed solar system, Jack felt the truth of it all. The real power of humanity wasn't in their ability to defy the odds or embrace chaos. It was in their ability to share those gifts with others, to help even their enemies evolve into something new. The phoenix had risen from the ashes, not to rule, but to light the way forward. In the end, that made all the difference.